Welcome back to Switched to Linux. Well, today I want to talk a little bit about the problem of password managers. And this is an interesting subject because, of course, as the world is trying to go passwordless, which I think is the worst idea in the history of the universe. You know, it's just better to not be stupid with how you manage passwords. And we can have two-factor authentication using things like YubiKeys and other security token type devices, as long as we're not tying ourselves to like the Google ones or text messages. You know, SMS two-factor authentication is almost less secure than a good, strong password system, because if somebody snakes your phone and has access to your phone, and they can intercept those 2FA codes even for a short period of time, well, they can convince anybody that they're actually the one who owns the account. And so this is why we have to be very cautious about the way that we are using any device. Of course, we talked in the news a couple weeks ago that Bitwarden also is doing away with passwords. There's an option to do away with passwords, utilizing a notification system tied into their phone app. That's a decent example of a good two-factor authentication system that the way their system works, it ties your account logged in on the phone itself to the app, and as long as it doesn't go anywhere else, that's probably okay. But I'm still going to issue a warning about Bitwarden here in a bit. But to get into this, what I wanted to do is highlight an article that I felt necessitated its own video rather than including it in the weekly news roundup. Because this is going to tie into another case we've been talking about more recently. So improper use of password managers leaves people vulnerable to identity theft. A password manager can be useful and an effective tool for creating, controlling, and applying complex and secure passwords. But if you don't use it the right way, you can open yourself up to an account compromise and even identity theft. And so what they did is they based this based on a survey, and it wasn't a large enough survey to be massively significant, but at least it gives us a few talking points. So they did 1,047 American adults, conducted November of 2022, and this is based on the Password Manager Annual Report. It's an online survey. So it's an online survey that may or may not bias it in some way. What they said about how people keep track of their passwords, 41% said they memorized them, which nowadays would require you to be Rain Man to figure it all out. 32% write them on a piece of paper, maybe a sticky note like milk and eggs or something, setting that by the computer, or, you know, if you're trying to break in, checks the bottom of somebody's keyboard. Maybe they have their passwords down there. Ooh, there's a good hiding place. It's like putting a key under your mat. Not a good plan. All right. They say that 25% save them in their web browser. That can be problematic depending on how you're doing it. 22% use the same passwords across all their accounts. You should never do that. And now they say leaving 21%. I don't know if that's actually 21%, or they said, well, if you're not doing any of those, you must be using Password Manager. I'm not sure. But they said 21% actually used the Password Manager. So with this, they then talked about people turning to potpourri of often unsafe methods to manage their passwords. It's no wonder that identity theft has hit a large number of individuals. Among the respondents who experienced identity theft over the past year, half of them said they reuse the same passwords across multiple accounts. That is your biggest problem, because if the password leaks in one place, that same password can then be applied to everything else. This is called a credential stuffing breach, which is very popular and the easiest way to break into somebody's account. 46% save their passwords in digital notes. If that's just a text note on an unencrypted computer, anybody can walk off with your hard drive and get access to everything, so don't do that. Even we were having this discussion not too long ago. What about password protecting a Excel or a I think they said Excel, LibreOffice spreadsheet file? No, those can be cracked in a matter of just a few seconds with, like an Atom processor. That is, password protecting a spreadsheet is just a joke. So you can't do that. If you are going to do something like that, you need to have it, saved encrypted inside of some other means of encrypting something, a Veracrypt or what I generally use is Lux encryption on Linux. Do a little Lux encrypted partition on your hard drive and drop everything that's highly secure in there. That's much better protection than anything else. All right, 35% try to memorize them, 35% write them down on paper. Those who use a password, only 19% were victims of identity theft. So apparently, if you use a password manager right, you're probably not going to be a victim of identity theft. All right, and then they talk about how they use it improperly. The biggest improper use of a password is reusing your passwords. If your master password for your password manager is something you're using anywhere else and people can use it as a cred stuffing attack, they now have access to absolutely everything, especially some password managers even allow you to store credit card numbers and other personal information in there. And some of them even encourage you to because they pretend that they are safer. Where and why people use password managers, asked why they use password managers. 65% of those surveyed said they have more passwords than they can remember. 54% need to log into their accounts across multiple devices. 51% use them to create complex passwords. 46% to manage multiple logins for different applications. 37% said they use password managers to encrypt their passwords. 19% use them so they only need to remember one password, that being your master password. Drilling it down further, they found that half of the respondents rely on them for personal accounts, 46% for both work and personal, only 4% for just work accounts. That tells me we have a big problem in corporate America with password management, which makes sense. Some 84% of password managers are on a mobile device, 75% on a computer, 44% on a tablet. And how much people are paying. 67% said they pay nothing, 10% between $1 and $20, 7% pay between $21 and $40, and 6% pay between $41 and $60. That is annual prices. And then among those, Google Password Manager is the top product. That is terrifying to me. Cited by 23% of those surveyed. Apple iCloud Keychain took the second place. That's terrifying. 17% use other managers like Bitwarden, LastPass, 1Password, and Dashlane. And are they safe? Among them, 43% said yes, 23% said no, 35% were not sure. That is general respondents. Among the password manager users, 75% believed they were safe, 8% thought they were unsafe. Those were probably like that 4% that had to use them for work, weighted averages. And then 17% were unsure. Among the non-users, 36% felt they were safe, 38% weren't sure. It's kind of like, Dave Ramsey always said this in one of his Financial Peace University things. He says, 80% of people think 80% of people think they have financial problems and 20% are willing to do something about it. It's like, okay. All right. Now, what they get in here is a little bit more about creating a stronger master password, because the biggest breach problem is that people are reusing their passwords. If you're reusing your passwords across any other service, the weakest link service is the key to everything you own. Now, the reason I want to talk about this in detail is, remember this LastPass breach we've been talking about for the last couple months on the weekly news roundup every now and again? Well, it turns out that LastPass hackers stole the password vaults. So your password vaults that they're like, they didn't get any of that. They've been telling us this was slowly. They've been leaking out small amounts of information, and then finally they got the password vaults too. But they're encrypted. Don't worry. Well, the problem is if most people are reusing passwords, and a lot of people that had their password managers breached are using it because of cred stuffing. Now the hackers have your password vaults, and if you're cred stuffing and you're using LastPass, that means if you are using the same password on LastPass as you are anywhere else, every one of your passwords is considered compromised. So your first task, if you're using LastPass, is to migrate to something else. Your second task is to go through every single thing in there and change the passwords. Because what LastPass basically says, well, just get in there and change the password for your archive. It doesn't matter. They got it. They have a copy. That means if you change your password, Awesome. But the copy the hackers have, they can still continue to brute force. Okay, they're giving you a psyop. They're giving you a gaslighting about the security of their stupid password manager, even though their password vaults were stolen in the breach. They confirmed that cybercriminals stole customers' encrypted password vaults, which store customers' passwords and other secrets, in a data breach. In an update to an updated blog post on the disclosure, LastPass CEO Karim Tuba said the intruders took a copy of a backup of customer vault data by using cloud storage keys stolen from LastPass, an employee. The cache of customer password vaults is stored in a proprietary binary format that contains both unencrypted and encrypted vault data, but technical and security details weren't specified. The unencrypted data includes vault-stored web addresses. Basically, that means that unencrypted is a list of every service that you have tied to your email address. Isn't that awesome? They said the customer vaults are encrypted and can only be unlocked with the customer's master password, which if you're cred stuffing, they might already have. All right. The company warned that cybercriminals behind the intrusion may attempt to use brute force to guess your master password and decrypt the files. They may. No. This is our end goal, is to breach these, because if you get into one of these password managers, you get into everything. Okay, this is going for the big score. This is going for the big break, the big job, the one last job that's going to allow you as a cyber criminal to move on off into some private island somewhere. This is the big score. Because, I mean, why bother getting this account and then this account? And that you get this, you get everything. This is the one they've been targeting. This is the one they've been going for. All right. They are an overwhelmingly good thing to use for storing your passwords, which is good. So security incidences like this are a reminder that not all password managers are created equal and can be attacked, compromised in different ways. Given that everyone's threat model is different, no one person will have the same requirements as the other. In a rare situation like this, which we spelled out in our parsing of the last data breach note, if a bad actor has access to customers' encrypted vaults, all they would need is the master password. An exposed or compromised password vault is only as strong as the encryption and the password used to scramble it. So if you are using LastPass, your first task is to switch to something else. Your second task is to change every single password in there. Now, a lot of people would point you, and, I myself might say, if you absolutely have to have some cloud-based, Bitwarden is going to be the better choice, because it is open source. It is FOSS. You can self-host it on your own instance. Now, if you are going to use it, self-hosting it is slightly better. Just kind of going back to, we did a video a few weeks ago talk about self-hosted software. Even if there is a vulnerability in Bitwarden, if you are self-hosting yours, someone would have to know about your specific server and to breach it the same way. Whereas if you're using the Bitwarden centralized service, it's really no different than LastPass. It's just free and open source. I like free and open source software, but not enough to put every one of my passwords on the internet where hackers are constantly trying to find it. And so I would not recommend Bitwarden on that basis. And there's better and alternative solutions. Now, what I use for passwords is KeePassXC. I did have somebody complaining and switched either LastPass or OnePass, one of them, from KeePass, because well, the app I was using didn't work. It's like, dude, go on to F-Droid, type in KeePass Password Manager, and you will find a dozen up-to-date options, because KeePass, not only is this an open source password manager, it also uses an open source, very highly secure format for its database. It uses the KBX database file, which can be read by a variety of different applications. So if the one application you are using to manage KBX passwords on a phone, for example, is what the complaint was, go to F-Droid and find another one, preferably that is more up to date, because it is possible that these open source softwares will fall out of out of maintenance, as the original KeePass really is not as good as KeePassXC, which has added extra layers of security, extra features, and things like that. But here's the reason a lot of people don't, is because we have become mental morons as far as living off of the cloud. Okay, we're like, well, this is a local file. I can't possibly use this on your phone. Sure you can. You simply plug your phone into your computer and you take that KBX database and you drop it onto your phone. You mean I have to put my phone into a wire to my computer? Oh, my Lord, help us. But no, that's exactly what you should do. Now, what you should ideally do is the only accounts you would need to access on your phone, you should have a separate KeePass database for just those. Don't have anything in there that's not relevant. Okay, and then send that to your phone, and then you might need to change a password from time to time. That's okay. Be a big boy and a big girl, and during your regular periods of regular maintenance and backups, making sure that you always have a good backup of all of your data, which you should be doing, include in that updating your master password manager and then redeploying that to your different devices, which takes all of about 2 minutes. Okay? But you keep a KeePassXC database, and what I do personally is I have two. I have one of them which is just my personal stuff, and I have one of them that is all of my clients' data. I get separate two ones. And then I will take those as master passwords, and then I will split those out by copying things. So like you might have one for things you want to stay logged into your web browser. And instead of using the web browser's password managers, which are generally known to be insecure, you go ahead and use the KeePassXC browser extension, which is made by the KeePassXC team. You tell it which database file to use, and this is a much more secure way to manage your passwords than using the built-in password management, in which case you just need to open up KeePass, make sure that the database is unlocked, and as long as that is unlocked, your browser is going to go into your unlocked KeePass file in order to do that. And so there are a lot of good options that we have. And what you want to do, the reason I use KeePass is because it is offline. There's no copy that's floating around nebulously on the internet. Now, if you do want to have a copy in a cloud backup, it is highly encrypted itself. And you put it up there in, maybe a secondary encrypted file onto an encrypted cloud service like Nextcloud or some other encrypted service like that. But you're not using that on a regular basis. You have a separate file on your device, a separate file on your computer. And if I can do this managing a good dozen devices, I'm sure you can manage to do it on 1 or 2 devices. Okay, because you want to make sure you're not having all these things online. So if somebody gets in there and breaches one master service like LastPass, you do not need them grabbing a lot of password vaults and then wondering if all of your stuff is set up. Now, with that being said, KeePassXC does have a lot of options inside of its own setup. So if we were to go over and have a look at the system itself, you can go ahead and create a new database file there and then hit continue there. And then the decryption time will adjust. It'll take longer, but it will greater increase the security. The higher your decryption time, the greater amount of security that you're going to have. You have a format here, and then we have some advanced settings. So you can do a variety of different encryption methods. You have your different key methods, and then a little bit of memory usage, a little bit of parallelism, just simple different options. All right. You can give it your password over here, but then if you click extra, you can use a key file and you can use a YubiKey. So if you do have YubiKeys, you can secure it. Now, I did have one person, and I don't personally use the YubiKey with mine. I just use a very complicated master password file. And since they're not on the cloud, I'm okay with that because almost every computer I have this deployed on is also encrypted. But I did have somebody say that the YubiKey challenge didn't work, and so he lost it. What I'd recommend in this case is in your backup files, have a copy of this that does not have the YubiKey challenge on it, just as an extra measure in case, and that master backup should be completely offline and completely encrypted. So you should be pretty safe there. All right. Once you give it your password, though, then you'll get in there and be able to have another instance of just another password manager. So you can have a variety of different databases. You can do, one for one for banking stuff. You can do one for just social media type accounts. You could do a separate one for, in my case, like I said, I have one separate file for clients and another separate file for myself. And of course, you can manage your password files as well. So this is the option that you should use well before using anything like LastPass, which tends to be, I guess, leaky as a sieve. And, how long before they tell us, well, actually, they got everything, and then they got the ability to unencrypt it, and then they got absolutely everything else, and then, our passwords were stored over somewhere else in plain text. I don't think that's going to happen, but, this has been unfolding for weeks now, and now we finally realize. It makes you wonder, when did they actually know that they got our password vaults? Wouldn't that have been nice to know information before? Because their recommendation is change the password on your vaults. Well, it doesn't matter. They stole a copy of the old one. Just because you change the password on your new vault on LastPass does not change the password of the one they have and stole. So if they can get your password or run that through some supercomputer, yes, in theory, they could decrypt your password and have access to absolutely everything. So password managers are still a good thing. You got to do it right. And in my opinion, the way to do it right is to use the open source format, the KBX file. You want to have a master backup of that file, and then just deploy the portions that you need in the ways you need it, whether that be a browser plugin extension just on your computer itself or having a copy deployed to your cell phone. And then just make sure that the applications you're using to manage these on your phones and such are being up to date. And that way you will have a good solid password without having to worry about some central service gets hacked, leaking out the possibility of some hacker getting access to absolutely every account that you own. Because if you have the amount of accounts as most people do, it would be a couple day project to get in there and change all the passwords. And then, if they've already stolen your cell phone, you're probably not going to succeed at doing it anyway. You can consider it a lost cause and just go and change your identity instead. It might actually be easier. Well, that is my take on passwords. I do have tutorials on using KeePassXC and the browser extension. I'll go ahead and link those in the description of this video. With that being said, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.